The world of modern celebrity and ancient monarchy has always existed in a delicate, almost ethereal balance. A space where perception is crafted with the precision of a master diamond cutter, and where a single misstep can shatter an illusion decades in the making. For years, the global public has watched an unprecedented narrative unfold before their eyes. A story that began with the promise of a modern fairy tale and evolved into one of the most polarizing cultural phenomena of our time. It is a story built on the heavy foundations of tradition, duty, and the relentless consuming glare of the international media spotlight. Yet, beneath the polished surface of high-profile interviews, multi-million-dollar production deals, and glamorous public appearances, a far darker and more chaotic undercurrent has been churning. What happens when the very machinery used to build an independent empire begins to turn against its creators, transforming a carefully curated narrative of empowerment into a relentless cycle of public conflict and reputational erosion? We are currently witnessing what many cultural observers and institutional insiders describe as a slow, inexorable descent from grace. A period where the pristine quality of a highly manufactured image is permanently replaced by the harsh reality of strategic miscalculation and fading public sympathy. It is a fascinating, if tragic, spectacle of a self-made crisis, where the pursuit of a personal vendetta has led not to the slaying of legendary dragons, but to a profound form of symbolic self-destruction that reverberates across continents. To understand the gravity of the current moment, one must first understand the invisible architecture that governs the British royal institution and the unspoken rules that dictate how power, respect, and trust are maintained within those ancient walls. For generations, the palace operated under a strict and unyielding philosophy, a quiet doctrine that favored endurance over explanation and dignity over public debate. This stoic silence created a shield of mystique, a sense of elevated distance that protected the monarchy from the fleeting whims of popular culture. However, when a prominent branch of that family chose to break from tradition, rejecting the institutional framework in favor of the loud, fast-paced world of global entertainment, the rules of engagement changed forever. The initial phase of this separation was marked by an explosion of global attention, a period where every revelation, every grievance, and every intimate detail shared with the world was treated as a monumental cultural event. But the media landscape is a voracious beast that requires constant nourishment, and a narrative built primarily on grievances and the airing of familial discord carries an inherent expiration date. As the years have progressed, the initial shock value of these public disclosures has steadily diminished, giving way to a growing sense of public fatigue and a critical re-examination of the motives behind the endless crusade against the crown. As we delve deeper into the complex mechanics of this unfolding institutional drama and explore the critical turning points that have brought this high-stakes relationship to the absolute brink, it becomes essential to examine the underlying motivations and the hidden strategies that operate far away from the camera lenses. If you find yourself captivated by these deep structural analyses of contemporary cultural history and the shifting dynamics of global prominence, please consider subscribing to the channel to ensure you never miss an episode as we unravel the intricate threads of this ongoing saga. The story we are exploring is far more than a mere collection of tabloid headlines. It is a profound study in the nature of modern influence, the fragility of institutional trust, and the long-term consequences of choosing a path of perpetual confrontation over reconciliation. By joining our community, you will gain access to the comprehensive breakdowns and detailed historical context required to fully comprehend how these monumental shifts impact not only the individuals involved, but the very future of a centuries-old institution that continues to capture the imagination of millions around the Loeb, the transition from being perceived as a pair of visionary changemakers to being viewed as the primary conductors of their own public demise, represents one of the most astonishing reputational shifts in modern media history. This transformation did not occur overnight, nor was it the result of a single isolated event. Rather, it was the accumulation of countless small decisions, public missteps, and a perceived lack of authenticity that gradually eroded the foundation of their global appeal. In the high-stakes world of international branding and corporate ambassadorships, consistency and stability are the ultimate currencies. Yet the narrative surrounding this breakaway royal couple has become increasingly synonymous with a sense of perpetual chaos and unpredictability. Major global organizations and philanthropic entities, which initially rushed to align themselves with the star power of the Duke and Duchess, now find themselves quietly navigating a minefield of public relations risks, wondering if the immense cultural circus that follows in their wake is worth the eventual destruction of institutional goodwill. The pristine aura that once promised to revitalize the perception of the monarchy on a global scale has evaporated, leaving behind a stark and troubling reality where trust has been entirely compromised. And the line between an authentic pursuit of justice and a deeply personal feud has become permanently blurred. Now, the stage is set for an entirely new and far more damaging chapter in this long-running conflict. A moment where the unspoken patience of the palace has finally reached its absolute limit and the institutional defenses have been fully mobilized. Behind the scenes, away from the carefully scripted public appearances and the defensive statements issued by representatives, a definitive and calculated shift in strategy has taken place within the highest echelons of the royal household. For months, there was a lingering concern that the ongoing public attacks would cast the newly established reign in an unfavorable light, portraying senior royals as cold, unfeeling, and detached from the vulnerabilities of their own flesh and blood. Yet, through a combination of relentless dedication to public service, quiet resilience in the face of immense personal adversity, and a masterful handling of administrative boundaries, the palace has managed to completely rewrite the script, turning the tide of public sympathy entirely in their favor, while leaving their chief detractors increasingly isolated in a self-imposed wilderness. The long-standing operational philosophy of the British monarchy, encapsulated for nearly a century by the late Queen Elizabeth II's unyielding mantra of never complaining and never explaining, was subjected to an unprecedented internal breakdown that forced an immediate, highly detailed institutional counter-offensive. For years, this traditional approach served as an indestructible fortress against the swirling tides of media speculation and personal grievances, ensuring that the dignity of the crown remained elevated far above the chaotic arena of public recrimination. However, a breaking point was reached when Prince Harry attempted to navigate his logistically complex travels to the United Kingdom by demanding accommodations at Buckingham Palace, a request that set off a series of rapid, tense communications behind closed doors. In a move that stunned seasoned royal observers and signaled a permanent shift in institutional patience, the palace administrative staff took the extraordinary step of issuing a granular, point-by-point public refutation of the Duke's narrative. The official statement from Buckingham Palace did not merely decline the request. It laid bare the exact chronological reality of the situation, revealing that the prince had initially informed them on Saturday that he would not be staying at the residence, only to abruptly alter his plans at the 11th hour and expect a full mobilization of royal resources. The logistics of managing a royal residence are not a matter of simply turning a key in a lock. They involve an intricate web of security protocols, hospitality staff, specialized catering, and precise administrative coordination that cannot be summoned instantly without severing existing operational schedules. By detailing how Prince Harry's sudden change of mind would require roping in dozens of non-essential employees, chefs, and security personnel on short notice, the palace effectively dismantled the carefully cultivated narrative of a vulnerable son being left out in the cold by an unfeeling family. This level of explicit transparency from the royal household was not an accidental outburst, but a calculated administrative boundary. A public demonstration that the institution would no longer allow its operational integrity to be used as a prop in a manufactured drama of personal victimization. The unfolding situation felt to many onlookers like watching a profound institutional and personal breakdown occur in real time on the global stage. A moment where the thin veneer of royal prestige completely shattered under the weight of logistical reality and fractured trust. This public unraveling raises deeply troubling questions for the major corporate entities and global philanthropic initiatives that have heavily invested their brand equity and millions of dollars into Prince Harry as a prominent international ambassador. Organizations such as the mental health platform BetterHelp, which pays the Duke as a highly visible public figurehead, and the Invictus Games Foundation, which has long been his most celebrated and universally respected project, now find themselves in an incredibly delicate position. Corporate boardrooms and organizing committees are forced to look at the escalating public relations circus and evaluate whether their global representative is bringing positive attention or a toxic trail of unpredictability and chaos wherever he goes. When a brand ambassador is viewed as an active source of institutional destruction and perpetual friction, the commercial and philanthropic value of that partnership begins to rapidly diminish, turning a once lucrative asset into a severe liability. The core issue plaguing the Duke of Sussex is no longer just a disagreement over historical events or family dynamics. It has fundamentally evolved into an absolute breakdown of basic trust, making it nearly impossible for either the palace or international organizations to rely on his word or his stability. The timing of these escalating conflicts was anything but coincidental, pointing to a much broader and more complex web of legal defeats and strategic miscalculations that occurred within a single, devastating 24-hour window for the Sussex camp. When Prince Harry confidently announced his intentions to travel to the United Kingdom alongside Meghan and their children, he appeared entirely unaware that the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, known as RAVC, was on the absolute verge of delivering a decisive ruling regarding his taxpayer-funded police protection. The independent committee's announcement that the Duke would not be granted automatic state-funded security was a monumental legal blow, stripping away a critical element of the official status he has fought so fiercely to maintain since stepping back from active duties. Within hours of this legal defeat, the King's firm refusal to permit an ad hoc, chaotic stay at Buckingham Palace landed like a secondary explosion, demonstrating a unified front between the state security apparatus and the leadership of the monarchy itself. The palace infrastructure possesses an incredibly deep, sophisticated understanding of the societal, legal, and media mechanisms operating within the country, allowing them to anticipate the outcome of the Ravi court case and recognize exactly what strategic moves the Duke was attempting to make. King Charles and his senior advisors knew with absolute certainty that the legal verdict would be unfavorable to Harry, and they accurately interpreted his sudden, logistically impossible request for palace accommodation as an attempt to create a fallback narrative of familial abandonment. By refusing to play along with this dynamic, the king effectively shut down the opportunity for the Duke to use the historic royal residence as a shield against his own legal failures, or as a tool to rebuild his diminishing institutional credibility. This was not an act of malice from a father to a son, but rather the final closing of an institutional door, a clear signal that the last chances for a quiet, dignified reconciliation had been utterly blown through repeated breaches of confidentiality and public acts of defiance. The widespread concern among some commentators that this hardline stance would successfully revillainize King Charles and paint him as an unfeeling patriarch completely underestimated the shifting tide of British public opinion and the deep institutional respect the king has earned. The fear was that the Duke of Sussex would effectively leverage the media to claim his father was deliberately keeping his grandchildren at a distance and denying them basic security, potentially using this narrative to pressure the king into a high-profile appearance at the upcoming Invictus Games in Birmingham. A royal presence at the Birmingham event is widely recognized as the ultimate strategic goal for Prince Harry, an endorsement that would instantly grant his independent endeavors a renewed sense of official legitimacy and commercial value on the global market. However, the reality on the ground in the United Kingdom has proven to be entirely different from the victimhood narrative being broadcast from California, with the public increasingly viewing Prince Harry not as a tragic exile, but as the chaotic conductor of his own personal and professional demise. The elaborate public relations maneuvers and the continuous legal battles have backfired so spectacularly that instead of generating widespread public sympathy, they have alienated the very audiences whose validation and support the Sussexes desperately require to sustain their global platform. The profound shift in public sentiment across the United Kingdom and the wider Commonwealth cannot be understood without examining the stark contrast in behaviour between the working members of the royal family and the exiled Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Ever since the disclosure of King Charles's serious health challenges, the reigning monarch has steadily seen his respect and popularity surge, precisely because he has approached his duties with a quiet, uncomplaining resilience that embodies the traditional British ideal of service. Rather than retreating into private grievance or using his personal hardships to solicit global sympathy, the king has maintained a relentless schedule of public engagements, appearing on military tanks, visiting cancer patients in hospitals, and interacting with everyday citizens at local flower shows. This stoic dedication to the crown has been mirrored closely by Queen Camilla, who has displayed remarkable bravery in navigating the modern cultural landscape, choosing to publicly align herself with controversial literary figures like J.K. Rowling to signal that the monarchy will not be intimidated or dictated to by the polarizing forces of modern cancel culture. This collective institutional fortitude has completely re-established the King and Queen as monumental assets to modern Britain, proving to a deeply observant public that true respect is earned through consistent, dignified labor rather than media manipulation. The hard-won respect currently enjoyed by the King and Queen has created an impenetrable wall of public support, leaving absolutely no room for the rehabilitation of the Sussexes within the domestic cultural fabric. Senior royals have made it abundantly clear that they have no intention of allowing the hard work of rebuilding the monarchy's image to be compromised by bringing a disruptive, untrustworthy element back into the fold, especially given the profound desire to shield the Prince and Princess of Wales from further emotional and reputational distress. While the royal family emerged from this specific logistical and legal skirmish as the clear structural victors, objective cultural analysts acknowledge that the broader multi-year public battle has been an absolute catastrophe for the long-term prestige of the crown. The relentless airing of intimate family secrets, the deeply personal accusations preserved forever on global streaming platforms, and the historical grievances published in best-selling memoirs have left terrible, permanent reverberations around the world. the ancient, essential mystery of the royal family. The elevated sense of sacred respect and historical distance that commanded global reverence for generations has been undeniably weakened by the persistent attacks launched from California, leaving the institution with the massive, multi-generational task of rebuilding trust. The ultimate question moving forward is not whether the royal family can survive, but how efficiently King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Princess Catherine can fortify their positions while the Sussexes decide on their next commercial strategy. The prevailing sentiment among institutional insiders is that the quicker and more permanently the Duke and Duchess leave the British sphere of influence, the better it will be for the stability of the nation. Though uncertainty remains over whether they will choose to fade quietly into the background or continue to scream publicly to extract financial gain from their royal connections. This lingering anxiety is deeply rooted in the historical pattern of behavior established by the Duchess of Sussex, who famously hinted at her capacity for further disclosures during high-profile American media profiles, openly discussing how she never signed a non-disclosure agreement and revealing that she had discovered a personal diary she kept during her brief tenure as a working royal at Frogmore Cottage. While investigative biographers and royal historians openly question the validity of this supposed daily diary, pointing out the vast difference between an authentic historical record and an inventive retrospective memory designed for self-justification. The mere threat of its publication remains a powerful weapon of psychological and commercial leverage. To fully understand how the situation escalated to this point of irreversible alienation, one must look at the biographical trajectories and deep-seated motivations of the individuals at the center of this modern tragedy. Prince Harry, born into a life of extraordinary privilege but shaped by the profound trauma of his mother's tragic passing and the suffocating realities of being the royal spare, spent decades struggling to find a defined role within a rigid institutional hierarchy. His military service in Afghanistan provided a temporary sense of authentic purpose and camaraderie, a grounding experience that directly inspired his creation of the Invictus Games, which remains his most genuine and widely respected contribution to the global stage. However, his deep-seated resentment toward the British press and his simmering frustrations with the palace infrastructure created a volatile emotional landscape that was utterly transformed when he met Meghan Markle, an ambitious, self-made American actress who had navigated the highly competitive entertainment industry through sheer determination and a sophisticated understanding of modern digital branding. Born and raised in Los Angeles, California, the future Duchess had forged a successful career on the television drama Suits and built a prominent lifestyle platform. Experiences that left her entirely unprepared for the archaic, deeply traditional, and collective nature of the British monarchy, where the individual is always subservient to the institution. The collision of these two distinct worlds initially produced a wave of global optimism, but the transition from Hollywood's self-promotion to the selfless, often monotonous routine of royal duty quickly exposed deep ideological and personal fault lines. The Duchess's desire for an immediate, high-impact global platform clashed directly with the slow, incremental, and highly disciplined hierarchy of the palace, leading to an environment of mutual distrust, perceived slights, and administrative friction that culminated in their dramatic departure from the United Kingdom. Upon establishing their independent base in Montecito, California, the couple embarked on a massive multi-million-dollar media campaign that included the explosive Oprah Winfrey Interview, a multi-part global documentary series, and a deeply revealing personal memoir, all designed to establish their own narrative empire independent of the crown. Yet, this strategy relied entirely on the monetization of their royal identity and the continuous public critique of the very institution that granted them their global relevance, creating an unsustainable business model built on conflict rather than constructive creation, as the years have unfolded. This reliance on public grievance has isolated the Sussexes from both the British establishment and the top tiers of international society, transforming them from revolutionary cultural figures into a cautionary tale regarding the perils of modern celebrity over institutional duty. Their actions have catalyzed a permanent reshaping of the modern British monarchy, forcing the institution to streamline its operations, embrace a more focused approach to public service, and draw a definitive, unbreakable line between those who sacrifice for the state and those who seek to profit from its historic prestige. The ongoing saga stands as a profound testament to the enduring power of institutional resilience over individual ambition, proving that while a manufactured media narrative can capture global attention for a moment, it is the quiet, unyielding commitment to duty, authenticity, and public service that ultimately wins the enduring respect of history.